Hello, everyone. It's your girl, Marcie Thomas, and I'm excited to be here with you for another episode of Live Well Sister, which, just so you know, it's being pre-recorded. So you can still ask questions or whatever the case may be, but we'll have to get back to you a little bit later with those. So, of course, if you caught the introduction, you see that Live Well Sister is a space where we really believe in talking about things that help us to live well, whether it's our finances, our relationships, how we serve others in the community, our passion and purpose, which we're going to actually be talking about a little bit about this episode, but just all the things that help us to live our best lives. So I am coming to you from the outskirts of Atlanta, Georgia. And as you're watching, please feel free to drop where you're joining us from in the comments, just so we can know who all was here. So I am really excited about this particular conversation because I met this glorious young lady just in posting something on social media, talking about doing a new thing. And we know even the Bible talks about doing a new thing. So I really was intrigued with her work and decided to bring her on into the Live Well Sister space. So our special guest for today is Lisa Lipscomb, who is the author of the Amazon bestseller, Do Something New, 7 Steps to Recharting Your Path and Creating a Life You Love, which is designed for women who are ready to make the rest of their lives the best of their lives. I love that. She started Something New LLC after years of implementing a Do Something New and Fulfilling every month goal. Her social venture provides a path for those who are ready for the opportunity to engage in new experiences, lifelong learning, and so many other things. She is a seasoned 28-year educator that builds the bridge between adventure, lifelong learning, and self-care. And there are so many other things that I could say about Lisa in terms of introduction, but the best thing to do is to bring the woman of the hour into this space. So without any further delay, let's welcome to Live Well Sister, Lisa Lipscomb from Michigan, from Detroit. And actually, I didn't tell you, I used to live in Detroit. So
I live in Metro Detroit. I don't live in the city, but
okay.
I was born in Detroit.
Okay. And I
Yeah.
actually lived in Southfield. So there
Okay.
you have it.
Yes.
So welcome, Lisa. It's such a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Yes. So first of all, I'm really excited about the work that you're doing with Do Something New. So let's just get a little bit into your actual story, before we dive into the book and some of the work that you're doing and
hmm
concepts. But at an early age, in reading the book, I did discover that was when you first realized that you wanted to live a life that had an adventure, so to speak. So tell us about what happened when you were young that led you towards thinking about life a little bit differently.
Well, when I was in high school, I didn't necessarily enjoy some of my high school teachers and classes. And I told my dad, I don't plan to go to college. Why would I pay to take classes that bore me? Because I thought high school was pretty boring,
Right.
pretty blasé, not enough. Not enough that I could relate to. I didn't feel it. So
Mhm.
he spun or and said that as long as I live, I will always be doing something new. There is always something new that I will have to learn. And I didn't necessarily like hearing that at first, but the longer you live, the more you realize that that is absolutely true. So in saying that, I realized that you get options and choices of what the new thing is that you're going to learn. In high school, there are requirements, of
Right.
course, but once you get past that, even in college, you get to choose your major. And it took me falling in love with learning when I realized I get to choose what I'm going to learn about and explore and have adventures with, that I really fell in love with it. And so the possibilities are endless. And that opening that door and that way of thinking about it just changed and shifted everything for me.
I love that. So, based upon the fact that you could choose, what
hmm
was it that made you want to do education, especially saying that you didn't necessarily like school? So it's interesting
True.
you didn't like it, then you became an educator yourself.
Well, initially I wanted to be a journalist
Okay.
because I love writing.
Uh-huh.
The first book that I published was a book of poems. So I
Yeah.
did self-publish a book of poetry first. I love nature. I love writing. I was a journal. Well, I remember being part of a program where they made me the editor of a newsletter because they enjoyed my writing as much as I loved writing.
Yes.
I realized once I decided to have a family that, in being an educator, I could work while they were at school and then be off on breaks when they were home. Learned that I actually love teaching as
Hmm.
well as writing. I wanted to make sure that, the children or the people that were in my presence learned as much as they could in a joyous way and in a way that invited them to maybe see it a little bit differently and experience things a little bit differently. I didn't want them to be bored like I was, so
Right.
I found different and creative ways. Now, all my teachers weren't that way, but a bulk of them, I didn't want to. I wanted to, give a different experience to to children who ended up in my class. And then it turned into doing some training for and with adults. And it's like, well, what can I do that's different so that people aren't turned off or feel like this is not the place for them?
I love that. And it just brings so many things to mind, Lisa, because first of all, we all learn differently. So
True.
some people, if you just put a book in front of them and tell them to read, and for those of you all who watch me regularly, I love to read. You can look behind me and see the books, and that's not all that I have, just so you know. But there are some people who can read and really absorb in that way. But then you have people who learn from listening to things. You have people who learn from like maybe watching a video or a movie. You have people who
Mhm.
learn better from touching things. So yes, just the mere fact that everybody learns differently is, number
That's
one.
true. That's very true.
So that's one part. And then I love the fact that you started with the young people and helped them to learn and have a experience that's different from the one that you had. But then also transitioning over to adults, because how many adults do feel like, okay, once I've got this degree or, once I've
Mhm.
learned these skills for this job, I'm pretty much done. There's nothing else for me to learn, when that's so not true.
That's not true at all.
Hmm.
There's so much more. There's always something new that you can learn or experience that makes life greater and deeper and just, I mean, it never ends. The experiences that you can have. And then what you're saying is some people get stuck in a routine and they think, well, it's always worked this way. They can be very traditional and don't feel a need to change or do anything different because it works for them. Why ruffle feathers or try to reinvent a wheel? But this is looking at the wheel and adding a new spoke to
I
it,
love that.
or taking that wheel down a new road so that you can experience something you haven't seen before. Sometimes we don't know what we don't know, but
Right.
once we see it, it's like, wow, it opens a whole new world.
And I love that you said that, because I am an adventure girl. I'm always about doing something new.
Yeah.
As your book says, that comes easy to me. But in the work that you do,
Hmm.
specifically with adults, because I'm thinking most kids are a sponge. They're going to want to learn things. Most children, not necessarily
Hmm.
all, but it's a
Hmm.
little bit different because they have yet to be set in their ways.
True.
As you're working with adults, what are like the top one or two things that you find that they give you a pushback in trying to learn something new or do something new?
There are people who, as we were saying a couple minutes ago, they will say, I know everything that I need to know in order to make my life happen. If I don't do, I don't want to bring my mom into this, but at one point I was trying to convince her to change her mind about doing something. She
Right.
doesn't like to hear about some of my adventures.
Right.
Because she's more of a down to earth girl woman, and I'm more of a I'll go skydiving.
Yes.
She doesn't care to hear about that. So I was talking to her, and she said, Lisa, I might not ever change my mind. I like the way I live. I don't want to do what you do. I have no
Mhm.
interest in that. So there are people who have made a decision about being set in their ways and following their routine.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then there are people who, that's one of the pushbacks, not just from her, but from other people. It's like,
Right.
you go over there and do that. I'm fine where I am.
Mm-hmm.
And then I get people who say, well, how much does all that cost?
Woo.
And I don't have time. Like, I
Mm.
have this routine, I have this schedule. Um, and if I try to go looking for something new or traveling or just having all these trying these different foods, what if I get sick and how much does it cost? And they're not interested.
Hmm. That is interesting to me because I mean, of course, especially if you're talking about like big adventures, like around the world in 80 days. And remember that movie slash book? Of
Yes,
course, something like that is very it's going to cost a lot of money, and you really have to do a lot of planning for. But I'm just thinking that everything that you try that's new doesn't necessarily have to be something that breaks the bank. Some
that
of
is
it can be very
exactly
free.
true. That is exactly true. So that's one of the things that I discovered. So the year I turned 49, I decided to do a 50 before 50 challenge.
Mm-hmm.
So the goal was to do 50 new things or more before I turned 50. And no one has a lot of money to do 50 new things. So I had a core list of things that I wanted to do, but a lot somewhere along the way you come up across ideas and things that you can do and to add to the list. I didn't come up with 50 things immediately, but there are so many things that you can do that are free or low cost or
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's interesting because when people realize what I was doing, if they came across something that they thought I would be interested in, they would share it. And then there's something about social media.
Yes.
I guess they watch what you're doing, and so a lot of times things would just come across my timeline that I would see. It's like they figured out my algorithm of
Right.
adventure and they fed it.
Absolutely. That is so true. And yeah, you just said something. That is a quick way to find out things about people because I mean, that's how I found you being
Hmm.
on social media in a group that we're a part of. But it's like, it's that and, the people that you follow, even if you have like a remote interest in something, if you start to follow certain people, then you'll start to see more people who are like that
That's
person that you're
true.
following. And then all of a sudden, all these ideas start to flood your timeline. But it's interesting because just last week I was having a conversation with an aunt of mine, and she's an aunt, but she's only less than a year older than me, so she's more like a cousin, right?
Okay.
So I can give her, I can, say things to her that I might not say to my aunts who are a lot older. But we were having a whole conversation about this whole concept of doing things new, something new.
Hmm.
And she's like, "Oh, I'm just a creature of habit. I pretty much work and I go to the store and I do blah, blah, blah. And, I just don't, it's not something." But then when I tell her about things that I'm doing, it's like, wow. And I'm like, well, girl, what's wrong with you? I mean, I don't mean that in a negative way, but,
I get it.
there's no reason why you can't. And, like you say, you might not be able to come up with a list of 50 or 60 or 15 things, but start with one or two or five and mark that list off and keep it
Ex-
simple.
Exactly. Exactly. This just reminds me, I ended up doing a workshop about the 50 before 50 challenge. I created a course before
Mm-hmm.
COVID where groups of women would come together. It was my favorite workshop to teach. And
Mm-hmm.
when you have people in the room that are like-minded and like-hearted and adventurous, like we filled a board with ideas of things that people had done or wanted to do. So
Mm-hmm.
coming together with people who are into that, you will come up with new and extended ideas
Mm-hmm. And
because
I
it's
mean, just something off the top of my head, it could be something as simple. Let's just say you always go to the seafood restaurant and you're talking about moms. I'm going to get on mine right quick. You go to the seafood restaurant and you always order shrimp. Yes, mama, I'm
mm,
talking about you. But there's scallops, there's salmon, there's all these different things besides just getting your regular shrimp.
hmm.
Even if you go from fried shrimp to coconut shrimp, hey, it's something new. It's
That's
something different.
true.
So, that's the whole point of that. It doesn't have to be something elaborate.
Mhm.
But Lisa, how much do you think? Because we talked about people think it costs a lot of money, or they're just set in their ways. Like your mom saying, "I'm not doing that." My mom say, "Just give me the shrimp."
Mhm.
But how much of it do you think is really based in fear?
Ah, fear is something that drives people away. Fear of the unknown, fear of what if I don't like it. But
Hmm.
all of life is a risk.
Right.
Not just that, but life actually is about change. With this, you get to choose your change. When you
Hmm.
think about work life, a lot of times if you are working for someone else, they tell you you need to take this training, you need to do this particular task, you need to, and then whatever the list is. But when you decide to do something new, you are empowered to choose your change.
Right. I love that. Choose your change, everybody. I was trying to get up on the screen, but y'all heard her. Choose your change. I mean, that's just so important instead of someone else dictating. Because that you're so right, Lisa.
It's
So many
inevitable.
at the job, they'll be like, okay, yes, we had you doing this, but in your other duties as assigned,
Mhm.
we want
Mhm.
you to do that, and you don't oftentimes don't have a choice. But to
Correct.
really be able to choose that, I love that. That I like that.
Mhm.
I'm gonna write it down, and that's gonna stick. Choose my change. And, I will admit I'm a person that doesn't have a problem with it. I mentioned to you earlier, I used to live in Michigan. I'm originally from Ohio. I'm currently outside of the Atlanta area. I've lived a bunch of different places. So change isn't hard for me. But what I have found that now it's more like I want to be in the place that I am that I love. And I want to experience and explore here and other places outside of here.
Mhm.
So for that perspective, say that person who doesn't want to necessarily travel the world or live in a bunch of different cities, how can
Mhm.
they explore or take on adventure where they are?
So one of the things that I'm writing into the course that I'm creating is a travel course. There's a component about local, national, and international, but locally. In the Detroit metro area, there's a lot of new restaurants being open, a lot of new spaces that are being developed. And no matter where you are, whether you're in the US or somewhere else, there's always someone that's trying to open something new,
Right.
establish and open a new business in a new community. And so it's important to get to know the area of where you live. I think it's interesting because I live, well, when I lived in the city, we didn't go to the Motown Museum because Detroit is Motown.
Right.
And there's so many people that I've learned have never been to the Motown Museum.
I never went and I lived there for 10 years, so shame on me, right?
Yeah, so it's interesting when we have these gems and jewels and don't always visit them, and they're so close. So I'm
Mhm.
not sure what that is. It could be part interest, maybe someone that was interested in exploring the history of Motown. I don't know I'm not sure because it took me a long. I didn't visit that museum until I was grown.
Mhm.
But I did things that I was more interested in because
Right.
I like being outside. That's inside. I would rather explore parks and
Mhm.
places and spaces that have food, like you were mentioning before. I like trying out new restaurants. And
Mhm.
even if I don't leave my own house, in the
Right.
kitchen, like this time of year, I love trying new recipes because it's getting cooler out. So turning on the oven to bake or to cook and create new meals, like this is my favorite time to do that.
Mhm.
So even if you never leave your house, there are things that you can do new inside your kitchen. That is really simple.
Mhm.
Knowing that you like different teas or different coffees, but trying a new one.
Mhm.
They have these flights. So there are flights, beer flights, ice
Mhm.
cream flights,
Mhm.
specialty coffee flights. So you get like four different flavors of something in one.
Mhm.
That's an easy and quick way to try something new locally. And again, I remember when my kids were little, they're grown now,
Right.
but in summer, because was teaching and we would be up at the same time, we would just go down a street that had like rows of stores and rows of restaurants and just
Mhm.
go on a different one to see what was going on inside. And there's always something new to discover and explore. So sometimes it would be random, but other times it would be intentional.
Mhm.
So touching base with things that you would love and enjoy, as you were saying earlier, and digging deeper with that.
Yeah, I love that you said that. Kind of, and it's a way that you can get lost in your own city, so to speak. But then, as long as you got a GPS or a good sense of direction, nobody really uses paper maps anymore. But yes, I mean, and that's really powerful. You're making me think of not too long ago. I had an experience, and sometimes it's just also being willing to be, or should I say, spontaneous. Everything doesn't
Mhm.
always have to be planned. Because actually, it was the last holiday weekend that we had, Labor Day weekend. I was scrolling somebody that I enjoy because I love art, and
Mhm.
if it's something artsy, if it's arts, music, book, anything like that, that I'm an artsy girl. So there's a young lady who had a piece of work that I discovered at an art exhibit a few months ago, and I was like, "Oh, I really love this art. It really speaks to me, or whatever." So I started following her online, which you've already talked about. Follow people
Mhm.
that may do things you're interested in, and I saw that she was going to be at this festival on the holiday weekend. And me, I didn't have any plans. I'm like, you know what? I'm just
Mm.
gonna get in the car in the morning before it gets crowded and before it gets hot, and I'm gonna drive over there and meet her, tell her how much I love her art, maybe pick up a couple of prints or whatever. And so I did that, and saw some other things while I was there. But the biggest find, and this is the thing about exploring your own neighborhoods or your own communities, is I found this old school store that sells, it's called Soda Pop and Candy Shop, I think it is.
Mm.
And I found out it's a chain. I think
Oh,
it's called
wow.
Rocket Fizz. So if anybody lives in a place where you see a Rocket Fizz candy shop and a soda pop and candy shop. But I went in there, and let me tell you, Lisa, all the little stuff that we ate when we were kids,
Yes.
all those candies were in there. And I was like, oh my
Oh,
God,
wow.
and I did good the first day, but I had company coming like the following week, and I'm like, I think that'd be a good little adventure for us to go over there,
Mhm.
just buy some of the old school candies.
Yes.
We were kids, and we did exactly that. So all of that long story to say is that being open and being willing to try something different, being willing to be spontaneous, not being
Mhm.
afraid to go into a new neighborhood, opened up
Mhm.
that new experience for me and someone else
Yes.
along the way.
So going to that store alone the first time, it's different probably from the time you went in with company. So it's
Mhm.
something new to return to a familiar space with someone that you had not been there before because you get to experience it through their eyes.
Right, right. You're exactly right. And we had a lot of fun, and they spent way too much money. Wasn't me. They spent too much. Oh, I want this. I want this. I want that. I was like, hey,
Mhm. Mhm.
that's on you. That's not on me. Nobody told
Yes.
you to do that. But yes, but all of that to say it was just a great experience. And so I know that you encourage the adults that you work with in your classes and that and things like that. But do you also encourage them to do something similar, like say with their families or their children or whatever the case may be?
Yes. Yes. So sometimes it's easier if the if sometimes it's easier to go through a kid
Hmm.
that say, well, can we do this? Can we go there? If the adult is reluctant, sometimes people will do it for their niece, nephew, grandchild. Sometimes they'll go out on a limb just
Mhm.
because they ask.
Right.
But other times, like the like what you're saying, when you see someone else doing something that seems cool or inspiring and enough to inspire you to, well, maybe I will change my schedule, maybe I will change my routine, and maybe I will, test the water. It does work that way. I remember before I went skydiving, I had a discovery flight lesson, so I went
Hmm.
up in
Okay.
a in a very small Cessna.
Ooh.
And when I shared that with a friend, she said, I'll do something new with you as long as we keep our feet on the ground.
Hey.
Like I don't want to go up in the air. But
Mm-hmm.
what was interesting about that, because I have a god brother that has a plane, recently married a woman who was also a pilot. He's a pilot, and his kids all had pilot's licenses
Oh,
before
wow.
they had driver's licenses.
Wow.
And when I told my mother about him, she goes, "Is he black?"
Oh, and you do
And
know about
I
there
went,
are black
"Yes,
people
mom,
too.
they are black." And so I was inspired to take the flight lesson because his teenage daughter was in a plane learning how to fly with her dad. And
Yeah.
I thought that was incredible.
Yes.
When I did that, however, I decided that wasn't for me. So he said it was probably because I was in a plane that was really small. Like my stomach did flip-flops in that Cessna.
Mm,
And when we landed and I got my feet on the ground, my knees were shaking.
I can imagine, Lisa. Wow.
So, I mean, it wasn't pleasant, but it was exhilarating and exciting at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how to just, but it was enough that I knew I didn't want to. If I take another flight lesson ever, it won't be in a two-seat Cessna.
Yeah, that sounds scary to me, and I'm not afraid
Yes.
of heights. But I mean, you really just hit on a key thing.
Hmm.
You don't know what you don't like if you don't try.
Absolutely. But after that, I went skydiving, and loved it. I
Mhm.
love that so much. I would do that over and over. But
Wow.
what I found out from that experience is the person who inspired me to do it is that all skydiving places are not the same
Okay.
because when he jumped out of the plane with a person attached to him, he didn't like it, and he said the person didn't tell him what to expect and
God.
how to prepare. The
God.
guy who I was with explained everything from the backpack and what happens if he passes out to
Ooh.
how to breathe and how to turn my head. So, experience could be based on the person that you're with.
And I love that you said that though, because that prompts me to say that if you were going to try something new, make sure that you do your research and that especially something like that, because I mean, I'm gonna just be honest, that's kind of dangerous. So if you're doing something that being maybe is a little dangerous or could be scary for you, do your
Mm.
due diligence and figure out who you're working with to make sure that they're gonna give you the type of experience that you're looking for.
Yeah. Well, I have a friend that works in risk management, and he said it was safe for me to do that than
Mhm.
to bungee jump or do that zip lining.
That kind
So
of makes sense because that line right there, if it pops,
exactly. And
oh
then
girl.
some people get back injuries, spinal injuries from the
Oh yeah.
spring, and they don't know it until later.
Yeah, I can
So,
imagine that if that thing jerks or something. Yeah, I
yes,
can definitely
yes.
imagine that. Well, I don't know, Lisa, because when I said I lived a lot of places and stuff like that, I was in the Air Force, right? And people automatically think I flew planes, which I did not. I worked in the accounting office, okay? And they think I jumped out of planes. I didn't do that either, but
Okay.
and I have said that I wanted to. So I don't know. I might, look into a tandem jump or something.
Mm-hmm.
Just, you know, you only have one life to live. Why not? So I love that. So you're talking about these, different adventures that you have been on, and thank you so much for sharing because there's so many things that we don't know, and it's like your mom asked, were these people black?
Mm-hmm.
The reality of it is, black folks are doing all kinds of stuff. A lot of times we have this mindset, oh, that's white people stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
shade the white people or anything like that. But I mean, anything that they can do, we're gonna do it better. But it's just understanding and knowing that we do, whatever it is, whether it's hiking, mountain climbing. I know of a young lady who just went to the top of the highest mountain peak in Africa. We're
Mm.
doing all of these adventurous sorts of things. So I think for me that would be another thing, not to think that other people who look like you don't do it. And I mean, not that you need for other people who look like you to do it to make it for
Mhm.
yourself, but understand that you're probably not the only one.
Correct. Um, the hiking. I've done that. So we know that the Girl Trek organization had been doing the self care, the stress, the mountain top.
Just protest, yes. Mm-hmm.
So I have been going to the stress protest, and I've climbed the Rocky Mountains, and I realized if I can climb to these tens of thousands of feet, it's a lot quicker if I fly up and then just jump out. So I did the same thing, just instead of walking, I jumped out. It was faster getting back down
Right,
there.
right, exactly, exactly. Yes, that is something. And you mentioned Girl Trek and the stress protest, but that organization, as well as other like travel type organizations
Yes.
or adventure type organizations,
Hmm.
are out there to give you experiences that you might not necessarily do on your own, because of course they've done all the groundwork. They've set the stage for you to do these sorts of adventures. So that is another option if you don't want to like do the vetting and figure it out for yourself. So I
That's true.
know that you are in the process of launching something that is taking people on more adventure type, experiences. So tell us a little bit about that, Lisa.
So I'm working on launching a travel course. Again, before COVID, I did experiences out and about. So I would go out with groups of women and experience everything from circus school to canoeing on the Detroit River. Um, Trying to remember other things we've done. We've done, oh, there's a Zen garden in Hamtramck, which is in
Okay.
a city within Detroit, and they didn't know it was there. So it's like a temple for ministers that has a green roof and a Zen
Mm,
garden, and they cook organically, and they people just didn't realize it was there. And
mhm,
just from my exploring, I found it and realized that I had a book signing and luncheon there. It
mhm.
was just being out and about and discovering new things. But the travel course that I will be launching is related to finding things
Okay.
locally,
Okay.
nationally, and internationally. And it helps my primary audience is women, helps them
Mhm,
make a plan so that
mhm.
they can go out and have those new experiences, either solo or plan to do it with a group. Some people have been asking me to bring my experiences back. I want to do the launch of the course first, and then I will consider it. It's always a lot of fun.
Mhm.
I do miss that part. But the
And it does
course,
sound like it.
is a
Mhm.
way to get women back into thinking about what can I do for myself. You have to, not just it is part of a self-care routine and making sure
Absolutely.
you have a fulfilling life and that you have the experiences that you desire, maybe that you put on the back burner, maybe that you have had on a list that's collecting dust, and we don't want to live with regret. We don't
Right.
want to look up and it's 10 years later and we didn't do the things that we really deserve and owe ourselves. So that is my next project
And
to
I love
launch.
that. Everything that you just said, yes, ma'am, yes, ma'am, yes, ma'am, Miss Lee. Because that is a thing. I think that, just the whole concept of doing something new is one thing, but some people just they don't do anything old either. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Because they're, as women, we are so busy pouring into others and making sure that others are having what they need or getting what they need. And absolutely, especially if you're a caregiver, a wife, mother, whatever the case may be, yes, there are things that you need to do and provide for others. But
Hmm.
I just think there's so much more value that we can even bring to their lives when we are living a life of doing new things, trying new things, having adventures, and all of that sort of things, having an open mind, because I think sometimes that's the problem. Maybe the mind might be a little closed about things,
Hmm.
but I just feel like the more open our minds are, the more things that we experience, we can pass those lessons and those things along to others.
That brings back a memory. When I was little, we were latchkey kids, my brother and I. So we would come home from school and wait for our parents to come home from work. And we used to watch Zorro.
Mm-hmm.
who had the sword.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to learn how to use a sword. I used to run around the house with a stick, doing the mark of
It's funny.
Zorro. My dad was a saver. So when I say, can I take these lessons? Can I go to ballet? Can I do this? I don't have the money for it. He did, but he saved it.
Mm-hmm.
So I created a list of childhood experiences that my parents said, no, you can't do that. I don't have the money. I don't have the time. Or girls don't do that, because how
Ooh.
many girls do you know that want to learn how to use a sword? Or, even the skydiving and the plane. So it's like my mom would dress me up in white and say, don't get dirty.
Mm.
So I made the list. It's like I owe this to myself to create the list of things that I desire to do. Somebody tried to talk me out of it,
Ooh.
and I've been checking things off that list. So I took fencing classes. I remember taking my daughter because I thought, well, I'll let her. She
Right.
wasn't interested at all. She
Yeah.
didn't like it and didn't want to go back after the first visit. So I
Right.
realized it wasn't for her. That was for me.
Yes, ma'am. I love you. See the big smile on my face because it's like, yes, yes, you're trying to live vicariously through her, but then you're like, you
Hmm.
know what? I'm
Yes,
gonna do that. I'm going to,
exactly. I
you
was
know,
the one that wanted to do it.
right. And we actually have a couple of sisters who have been in the Olympics doing things. Well,
Yes.
again, it's not that we don't do it, we just don't necessarily always see that. But I really love that idea of going back and, when I said doing something old,
Yes.
going back and maybe it was that thing that you couldn't do, or in some cases your parents couldn't afford it, or maybe it wasn't available in your neighborhood, or whatever the case
Correct.
might be. I love that idea because I still keep saying I want to learn how to roller skate because I didn't learn when I was a kid, but I don't know, my knees and my ankles say something.
I have a friend I'll be 56 this November. That
Mhm.
is basically around my age, that started roller skating lessons, I believe, within the last year.
Okay, okay.
So there are classes, and
There
she's
are,
taking it
there are,
slow.
there are, and I actually just turned 58, so yeah, we're in the same range. So
Yes.
yeah, it's like okay, so I can still learn how to roller skate.
It's worth a try. You'll know after the first couple lessons if you want to continue. But at
Right.
least if you're interested, I would say go for it.
Yes, of course you would, Lisa. Now, when I'm in a cast, I'm gonna blame you.
Mhm.
I'm just kidding. But I mean, that is just so true, whatever that thing is. And I love the idea, not just having that list, so to speak, that you come up with as an adult, just based upon things you may have learned or whatever, discovered as an adult, but thinking
Mhm.
back to the things of childhood, because sometimes it's those childhood dreams that you weren't able to pursue them for whatever reason, and it can open
Mhm.
up so many doors. Because a quick story from me, just the fact that I'm here talking to you doing this right now is really a part of a childhood dream. When I
Mm.
was a little girl, I had thought about doing a Essence type magazine, and I like the idea
Mm.
of writing or telling Black women stories, so on and so forth, but pursued a totally different path when it came time to go to school, right? And
Mhm.
then all these years later, now we're in a situation where we can do things like that. We can create our own platforms, whether it's a blog or, podcast or whatever it is. The world has opened up in such a way that the gatekeepers aren't there anymore.
True.
I could do my own thing. And a lot of that led to me being able to create a platform to talk to people like you, Lisa. So,
Mhm.
yes, sometimes you go back and, or like, well, the art that's on the wall is art that's mine. Now, I didn't want to be an artist, but it's something I discovered after going to way too many of those paint parties,
Mhm.
paint parties.
I've done that too.
Yes.
I've done that and had a lot of fun doing it.
Right. Right. But after doing that, I discovered, oh, wait, I think I've learned enough that I can, do a little thing on my own. And I,
Mhm.
managed to do that. So it's really about having an open mind and an open heart. But in the book, I know we've been talking about concepts in the book, but there's something specifically that I wanted to bring up that's in the book that you talk about. 7 steps, which is passion. And I mentioned that earlier on, that
Yes.
what it means to basically live with passion or pursue a passion. So tell us a little bit about the 7 steps that are included in your programs as well as the book, Do Something New.
It's so funny that you said that because I have my book open to that page.
I'm a mind reader, girl.
And because I knew this was going to be part of the conversation and I didn't
Right.
want to have to remember off the top of my head.
Right.
But I literally have the book open to that page.
Wow.
So, passion is an acronym. And it's a way that you can use to help guide how you want to move forward.
Mhm.
It is super important to tap into the things that you love because those are things that are inside of you. I want to say God given
Mhm.
dreams, gifts, talents, and things that are could be specific and unique to you. You don't want to miss the opportunity to experience those things. So, passion is an acronym, which means the P is for purpose, priorities, and perspective.
Mhm.
A is for adventure, access, and accountability. Step three, S is for stress relief, self care, and self reflection. The
Mhm.
next S is spiraling and summer slide. So, I talk about all these things in the book.
Yes.
I is for intention and intuition. O is for options. N is for neural pathways and neuroplasticity.
Okay. So let's start with that last one because some people might not know what the heck is. What is that?
So, let's talk about brain health for a moment.
Yes.
Something new is good for brain health.
Yes.
Um, some of the research says that people who develop dementia or Alzheimer's, they're they've stopped using their brain to create new neural pathways or new connections. So doing something new um, causes new connections in your brain to develop new paths, and your brain can still expand. You can
Mm.
still the more you continue to grow, the stronger, not this, but the stronger
Right.
your brain um, remains.
Mm-hmm.
They know that when people get stuck in a routine and there's no new information coming in,
Mm. So
uh,
good.
the neural pathway stops firing and creates a situation in which dementia and sometimes you can't prevent it, but
Right.
there are ways you can either slow it down or keep your brain growing by giving
Mm-hmm.
it new information, allowing it to create new neural pathways. And then the neuroplasticity part is that you're still growing and expanding, so your brain thrives on something new.
I love that. I love that so much because I think you hear stories of people who maybe have worked for, 40, 50 years and then they retire. They stop doing the thing, whatever that thing was that they used to do, and they just kind of sit and they don't take in any new information. They don't
Mhm.
try something new. They don't
Mhm.
experience new things. And a lot of times that's when you start to see a decline.
That's
So
exactly correct.
I love that you share that. So once again, it's not too late and it's very
That's
important,
right.
you know.
That's right.
So thank you for sharing that. So those people who still might be on the fence and be like, keep that brain, you want to keep that brain operating at capacity. And of course, as you said,
Yes.
there's some things that you can't control, but these are the
Hmm.
types of things that you can. So I
That's
love.
correct. That's
Mhm,
correct. I mean,
mhm,
there are other things that help increase neuroplasticity and create new neural pathways. And there's a lot of research on it, but something new is also high on that list.
mhm, mhm. And one of the other things we talked about options a little bit. I know I'm going backwards, but
Yeah, that's
we're
fine.
getting there. But we did talk some about options. How there are so many different options. There's a lot of different ways that we can get out here and do new things or try something new, and just having that willingness to explore.
Yes.
Hmm.
Yes.
And
Um,
go ahead.
I just want to say, again, it's the choose your change
Yes.
conversation. instead
Hmm.
of instead of letting other people dictate what your change is going to be and what you're going to do next. When you take control of those options, it feels different, and it's better and healthier for you to make those decisions on your own.
Hmm. And Lisa, I don't know why you're talking. I know we're talking about doing something new, and I was thinking about this even before we came on. It's like this applies not just to like adventure. This can apply in other areas of your life as well. Whether it's if you're a
Hmm.
single person and you're dating,
That's
yeah,
true.
keeping your options open, and
That's
being willing
true.
to figure out what you don't like.
That's important, and then avoid it.
And then avoid it, and then go out there and find that thing that you do like. I'm just saying.
Exactly.
So all the single
Exactly.
ladies and gents, if you watch, options are nice.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Don't be a creature of habit.
If that habit doesn't work and it isn't working well for you, it's time to do something
Absolutely.
new.
Absolutely. You also, and we talked about this a little bit about setting intentions about that,
Mhm.
and also following your intuition, because sometimes
Yeah.
your intuition will lead you into things that will be good experiences for you.
How did I have my book open to the page you wanted to talk about? That's pretty intuitive.
Mhm. It is. It is.
Yeah, yeah.
Definitely is just really thinking about that and intuition and intention, because I think that like when you're saying you created this list of 50 things that you wanted to do before 50, that was setting an intention. You weren't just thinking.
Absolutely.
And I know you think that that's important, but well, I mean, we do it in other areas of our lives, so why not in
Yes.
this area?
Yeah. I was a very young mother. I was a teen mom, as a matter of fact. I was so bored in high school that my focus turned to boys.
Okay.
And my dad had a very hard time with that. And it's like, I know that's not what you wanted for me. And I know you think it's going to be hard for me. I said, but I was intentional with
Mm,
knowing that, I need to go to school, I need to finish, I need to create a life that I want my child to have the best that I can offer. So
mhm,
that he was my motivation for finishing. Like, I had him when I was a few months before I graduated. I
mhm,
finished school, I went to college. I have three degrees, three degrees,
mhm.
national board certificate. It's like I'm an educationaholic.
Right.
But I realize it does take intention to create a life that you want to love and enjoy and thrive on. And doing the things that you enjoy most is the best way to enjoy the journey.
Hmm. And Lisa, yeah, there's a reason why we're talking, because when you talked about the degrees, child, same.
Yes.
Have multiple degrees, and I mean, no shame. I have some
Hmm.
that I started and didn't finish, just because I love to learn.
I
I
do
consider
too.
myself a lifelong learner, just like you.
Yes.
And just like
Yes.
Lynn, anybody watched Girlfriends Like Lynn? Lynn got 50, 11 degrees. It wasn't working for any of those things that she had degrees in, but
Hmm.
it was just the process of learning. And ultimately, if you watched Girlfriends, the series, later on, she found her passion, and it
Hmm.
wasn't tied to anything she went to school for.
Hmm.
So, there's that. But yes, that whole thing of lifelong learning. But in the second S, the spiraling and summer slide, it kind of
Hmm.
ties into that, because either, you can be that person who does continue to learn, or you could be that
Hmm.
person that losing it all because you go through this concept of summer slide. So what does that mean
Hmm.
for those who might not understand it?
So, summer slide is a term that we use in education. Kids are in school for, well, depending on their region. In like in the Midwest, kids are in school for 10 months and then they're off for summer. So what research has found is that the kids who stop learning, stop reading, stop doing math, start to forget what happened. So when they come back to school in the fall, it's like, how come you don't remember what you were taught last year? And then why are your test scores going down when you finished a grade, but it's like you're going backwards.
Mm-hmm.
But kids who continue to learn and continue to read and continue to, even if it's something that they're interested in, read, learn, do math, cook, have fun outside,
Mm-hmm.
they spiral up. So their test scores go up. They remember what they've learned because their neural pathways are still firing.
Yes.
And the kid who just stops doing everything, they lose out. But that isn't just with kids, that's also with adults.
Mm-hmm.
So people who graduate from school and say, I'm done, I'm not going to
Right.
college, I'm not going anywhere, I'm going to go to work and I'm going to make this money. If they don't continue to learn, they experience summer slide as well. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a similar problem. It's
Mm-hmm.
a
Mm-hmm.
similar problem, regardless of age. We don't
Regardless of
want to
age.
spiral down. We want it to continue growing and thriving and escalating,
Mm.
um, and increasing our experiences, our opportunities, and again, choosing our change.
Yes, choosing our change and understanding that that being a lifelong learner or being educated or whatever doesn't always require having to go get a doggone degree or certificate.
That is the
It
truth.
does not require that, for those
Mm-mm.
of us who've done it way too much, as well as those who, maybe didn't because they thought they just didn't want to do it any longer, like you initially thought about yourself. But
Right.
there's so many different ways to learn and do a new thing, do something
Yes.
new. Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, we've already talked some about these things being a stress relief and, provide self-care for us. So we've already touched on that a little bit. Is there
Mm-hmm.
anything else you want to add about how doing something new is a form of self-care?
Well, again, it's putting yourself on the front burner and making the things that you want to do and you love and that you're passionate about a priority, and
Mm.
scheduling it. So make the list and then schedule it.
I love that because even like when we talk about smart goals, one of those things in a smart goal is the fact that it is time bound. So schedule it,
Yes.
and it might mean if it is, say, that big trip, it may say, okay, I want to go, for me, like I want to go to the motherland and, be there for a certain amount of time. So I need
Me
to
too.
say by the age 65 or, by 2020 or, by 2027 or whatever, and then
Right.
work towards that.
Mm-hmm.
Because I
Mm-hmm.
think also you talk about it in the book about having something to look forward to.
Absolutely. It will motivate you to do the planning that you need to do in order to make it happen. I met Jessica Nabongo
Oh,
over the
yes.
summer, the lady that's visited every
Yeah.
country in the world. She was at the Grosse Pointe Library, and
Oh,
I
wow.
got her to sign my book. And listening to her talk about her experiences in some of the places, it lit a new fire for me.
Hmm.
So, finding people that have done what you're interested in doing will inspire you and also give you some tips and information that you may not have known otherwise because they've had the experience.
Yes, that firsthand experience is definitely helpful and all of that. And then even in that understanding that everyone's experience is going to be different. Because like I can think of going to Paris years ago when I was in
Mhm.
the military or just being in France in general, and people would talk, oh, France, the French are nasty, just some of the myths that we hear. But that was not
Mhm.
my experience at all. I had a
Mhm.
blast while I was there, and people were friendly and all those sorts of things. So I think, and this kind of talk goes a little bit about back to the whole thing of why people may or may not do a thing,
Mhm.
understanding that your experience is going to be uniquely yours.
That's absolutely true.
Hmm. Because there are people who may have had a bad experience and they take, oh no, don't do that because da, da,
Mm,
da, da, da. Or or it could be that somebody, again, talking about my mommy a little bit.
mhm, mhm.
And she normally watches, so I love you. Sometimes it might be, oh, I saw something on the news, or I
Mhm.
heard such and such and such and such. And just understanding that every experience is different.
That's true. My mom is similar. She'll talk to me about watching the news, and I have a cousin that went to the University of Michigan Dearborn and started a travel club. And one of the things he said to me is that his parents look at the list of the most dangerous places to travel, and a lot of times that's where he was planning to go. And he's like, they put that out to scare you. But the reason I'm going and the area I'm going to has nothing to do with that. So I don't know if he's like I stopped telling people ahead of time if I knew it would worry them or they would
Right,
try to sway or talk me out of it.
right.
You'll see the pictures when I get back.
Right, right. Absolutely. But like, I'm going somewhere. You'll find out more when I return. That's all you need to know.
Yeah, so again, if you are passionate about it, if it's something that's important and personal to you, then that's for a reason.
It's for a reason.
Yes.
Yes. And I mean, and just thinking about that, Lisa, sometimes if you allow someone else's fears to dictate how you move, there could
Hmm.
be an opportunity. There could be I'm going to say it, a blessing. There could be so many things
Yes.
that would come from you following your path versus
Hmm.
follow someone else's path.
That's true. If I did everything my parents told me to do and didn't do all the things they told me not to do, where does that leave me? I mean, I would be. I, we don't all have the same calling. We don't all have the same desires. We don't all have the same wants, needs. I mean, some things are essential, but
Right,
I mean,
right.
don't let people talk you out of doing what you know is yours to do.
Absolutely, absolutely. And as we're getting close to wrapping up, just want to go through the last ones because we've already talked about adventure. We've talked a
Hmm.
little bit about access,
Hmm.
understanding that access is different for different people. There
Yeah.
are some people who their sense of quote unquote adventure may be going to the neighborhood that's, 3 counties over or whatever, because that's
Hmm.
what they're able to do. But you
Hmm.
also mentioned accountability in that particular A. What do you mean by
Yes.
accountability as you're following your passion?
So if you don't believe you'll follow through and schedule it and do what you need to do, having an accountability partner, which is sort of like what I was doing,
Mhm.
being someone saying, okay, I did it, and next I'm going to do this.
Right,
That's an important part of it. So you may need to find a friend or a buddy that is interested in doing the same things you are, and then you become accountable to each other. I get a lot more done when I know I have to talk to somebody about
right.
whether I did it or not.
Mhm, mhm. Kind of
Sometimes
with
that'll
exercising, with
speed
working
it up.
out or whatever. It's like, yeah, girl, I'm gonna go to the
Exactly.
gym. Like, did you go? Are you go? Go meet me there. Nah, girl, I can't meet you there today. Girl, you said you were gonna do this. I'm like, okay,
Exactly.
okay.
Accountability.
Peer pressure. It's peer
Yes.
pressure.
Positive peer pressure.
Positive peer pressure. I love it. I love it. And then, of course, positive peer pressure. We're back to the P's.
Yes.
Impassioned, and we've already talked about perfect purpose. I'm sorry, about having priorities and then having perspective. So,
Yes.
yes, I love that. So this has been so much fun to talk to you today. I'm so glad that we were able to get this conversation in. And for everybody who's going to watch it, please share it out. Please, get yourself a pen and paper and start crafting your list.
Yes.
And like we talked about, even if it's 5 things, 3 things, whatever, one thing to get started. So
Hmm.
with that in mind, if it's 1 or 2 tips that besides, picking up a copy of your book, of course,
Yes.
what are 1 or 2 things that you would suggest for that person who is interested in doing something new?
Well, follow me on social media because I'm always giving new ideas. I share when I'm doing something new. If you're looking for ideas, I'll share them. But also, again,
Oh, I think we just lost Lisa. Oh, she's coming back. Hold on one second. There she
okay.
is.
So,
There she is.
yeah, I started by doing one new thing a month.
Mm-hmm.
It was really quick and easy for me to grow that list because I look for it. But if you just start with one new thing a month, that's a good starting point. And
Mm-hmm.
maybe you wouldn't feel as much pressure because I have a friend that said, I don't want to do something new all the time, just sometimes. So once a month, I mean, that's a good way to start.
Mm-hmm. Well, I love that. I love that. So, everyone, please, as Lisa has stated, snag a copy of the book. Follow her on social media to get some of those tips. And then also on social media, there are places that people get information about actually taking some of your courses or working with you as well, correct?
Yes, yes, that will be posted on my social media. And there should be something on the inside cover. There's a link on the book, whether you purchase the ebook or the physical copy. There's a link, probably on the ebook.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yes, I'm not seeing
follow
it.
me on
Oh,
social
yeah, I
media,
do
and
see it.
I will be sharing more information of things that I have coming up.
Hmm. Yes, and in the book there is a spot to get 7 free something new ideas. So
Yes,
yes, yes,
yes.
yes. So yes, everyone, please consider doing something new. Consider getting a copy of the book, and definitely go ahead and consider following Lisa Lipscomb because she has such great information, great ideas, and just another way to think about how we do new things and how we explore life and look at adventure and lifelong learning and helping us to keep our minds right
Yes.
as we age. All these different things are wrapped up in something that you probably thought was a pretty simple idea, right? But it's
Hmm.
much more complex than what we could imagine. So Lisa, again, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you, and I'm gonna go ahead and say goodbye to everyone. Thank you for watching this show. Continue to follow Live Well Sister and Brown Girl Collective for other great people that we'll have coming on the book side, as I should say on the fiction side, as well as here and
Hmm.
things to help us to live well and to live really wonderful lives. So thank you again, Lisa. Thank you for encouraging me to go and try and put on some skates.
Thank you. Thank
Yes,
you.
yes, and there'll be some other things as well. So thanks again for being here, and everyone, you take good care of yourselves. Bye bye.
Bye.